I'm Luke Young, and this is Dragonheart.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Dragonheart. I am joined with our usual guest, Mark Griffiths. I'm your host, Bill Long. But we have two special guests with us today, Chelsea and Nicola, who have come representing Her Game Too Cymru after a special announcement today. Nicola, would you like to give us a bit of a rundown of what the announcement was?
Yeah, so really exciting announcement. Her Game Too Cymru have partnered with Wrexham. So myself, Chelsea as ambassador, myself as advocate, kind of being the Her Game Too voice, I suppose, within Wrexham, support partnering with the club and getting other kind of work out there to make football for everybody and make it a safe place for women to go and watch and get involved in football.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, so we'll go into a little bit more depth about that and a couple of games to talk about, isn't there, as well, Mark?
Yeah, just a bit. Two men's, one women's. We got a good mixture. And then I can maybe, I just hope I don't hiccup tonight because there's the Mansfield podcast and just couldn't stop hiccuping. I had to abandon it. I have put it out there because I just thought it's just pleasingly stupid just seeing me trying to talk about wing backs while hiccuping and control. I do abandon it and do it again when the hiccups are stopped. But yeah, I'm just hoping I can not hiccup, belch or whatever during this broadcast and it'll all go fine.
I'm sure it'll just I'm sure it'll just add to the flavour of the whole podcast, Mark.
Yeah. True
enough. Okay, so let's get into a bit more detail then. So for everybody who doesn't really know Chelsea, could you go into a little bit more detail of what Her Game 2 is? I feel like I'm fairly familiar, but I'd be lying if I said I was really knowledgeable about it.
Yeah, sure. So Her Game 2 and Her Game Too Cymru, we're a group of female supporters who are passionate about football and also working to eradicate sexism within the football industry. So not only do we focus on the women's game, we also focus on staff members that are women and also us as fans. So we just want women and girls of all ages to feel confident and safe sharing their opinion and attending football games, even playing and working in football. So that is our main achievement there. So we just like to collaborate with clubs, supporters, organisations and stuff like that to raise awareness and fostering a dialogue about inclusivity within football.
Yeah, it's do you know what? I've had a bit of an unusual is maybe the wrong word, but it was unusual for the time sort of football and upbringing where it was my auntie that took me to all the games. And it wasn't really until I was a bit older that I actually noticed the sexism, because it was just normal for me to go with my auntie and then a bit later my mum. This is going to sound like a daft question, but is it something that you've faced at the football, Nicola? Are there any examples of where you've been made to feel uncomfortable?
I think I personally feel quite lucky where I sit in the match. I sit surrounded by men, but because I've sat with the same people for like 20 years, I've garnered their respect and kind of thing. But we hear it quite a lot. It's the insults that come from the supporters to the players, and when they're like female based, so oh, you're such a girl, or like if a player dares have like a ponytail, it's like, oh, you're such a, and it's those kind of things. And the biggest one for me, and it's the one that I do try and call out because I hear it quite often, is when if you've got a female official and if they're not having the best game, it's put down to their gender, as opposed to maybe they're just not having the best game kind of thing. So they're, and then online, I don't think there's any female that's there to put an opinion online about football and hasn't had something back about name 5 players or tell me the offside rule.
Well, it is embarrassing, Mark, and it's
embarrassing that anybody's reaction is that. In many ways, it's sad that you have to do this and try and point it out, but although it is mind-blowing, but it's just ludicrous, isn't it? I mean, look at that reaction when the American fan got the tickets, and she got huge grief. Now, okay, part of it is from some people who are maybe thinking, oh, why should American fan get my ticket? All right. But I don't think the majority of it was that at all. And it's just embarrassing to see people so keen to be so vitriolic, especially when they're hidden behind a laptop. It's absolutely, I don't know. It's appalling. That's not a question. It's just an angry outburst, because it's just so dumb, isn't it?
Look, it's one of those things that, like that, the whole name 5 players or what's the offside rule and all that sort of nonsense. Like, going back to like what I was saying about my mum and my auntie, maybe they shielded me a little bit from it, but I remember them coming back from Wales games when I was a little bit older, and they'd be like, oh yeah, we went to the pub and these lads from Cardiff are like, oh, you're not really Wales fans, you're just jumping on the bandwagon because Wales are doing well at the moment. And like my mum had a, like one of the season tickets for like 10 years or something at that point. It's like, all right, okay, just because it's a woman, it's jumping on the bandwagon. Never mind Bob from down the road who was supporting England 2 years ago, now supports Wales. Do you know what I mean? Like, funny one. I mean, what then? Her Game Too. What's like the what are you actively doing then, trying to sort of promote anti-sexism in football?
So I think the main thing is we have a report form on the Her Game Too website, so anyone can access that, report any type of sexism. And then we work with leagues, so the EFL, the Adran Premier, we work with leagues and clubs specifically to eradicate that, investigate all the reports, and just provide support to those that have been subjected to the sexism. But our main thing is just raising awareness of women are in football, and that's it. You're going to have to get used to it, whether it's staff, players and fans. It's just raising that awareness of we're there. We're not different to anybody else, just because we're a different gender. So we do dedicated fixtures with clubs and stuff like that, just trying to get Her Game Too's name out there, just so people know that we're there and that we are doing work behind the scenes to eradicate this.
It's I mean, Bill and I are both fortunate enough to be teachers. My perspective, certainly where I am, is that I've been there 31 years, so I've got quite a long perspective. There've always been girls who are interested in football, but maybe that, like you say about making a safe place, their braveness and being able to talk about it in front of the lads wasn't there. But now I feel like it is. It feels much more normal at their age that, and I'm including the lads into this. They don't have an issue with whether they're talking to a boy or a girl about football. They're just talking about football, and I guess we've got to hope that as their generation grows up, it becomes more and more just a norm and just not an issue at all, I guess.
Definitely. I think when I was at school, this is like 20 years ago now, like a gateway into football for women just didn't exist. It wasn't a thing. Like, I used to train with my dad's like youth football team, but I couldn't play the games with them because I was over 12. So just there was no way for me to get into football at all. So boys didn't see girls play football as necessarily, and I think it's just such a bigger thing now. I think things like the World Cup with the Lionesses, I think the Welsh national team, they're kind of gaining ground. The documentary, last night's episode was fantastic, and I think seeing that in the mainstream, that makes a massive difference.
It's weird, isn't it? Because, like you said, the Lionesses are such a massive, I think, driving force and forcing people to see things differently. When I say that, I don't just mean giving girls confidence, but I also think making men finally accept that women's football is a legitimate thing. And yet, ironically, we want to use them, but on the other hand, we're Welsh and we're supposed to hate England, and therefore it's an odd dichotomy, that, isn't it? Yeah. They're our allies massively, but we have to be careful maybe that some Wrexham fans don't say, why are we saying good things about England?
Yeah, so I should probably mention there as well, Her Game Too, we raise money, so obviously we're a non-profit charity. So that money that we raise from the merchandise, you'll see Nick's hoodie that she's wearing now, all that money that we raise, we put it into grassroots all around England and Wales. So I'm not sure if you've seen recently, but I attended a Brickfield tournament in the summer, and it was just all the girls, all different ages, and we gave them trophies and medals with Her Game Too on them. So it's not even just people that are already in football, it's getting those people in the grassroots to attend games and even play the sport.
It's great to have role models, I think, as well, isn't it? I have a prejudicial attitude towards the female officials. I generally find them better than the men, if I'm perfectly honest. And anyone who tries to use gender to complain, hell's bells. I mean, haven't we seen enough terrible male referees lately to be able to see that that's not the factor? But anyway, and then you got people that, you know, Gemma Bamford being the physio, things like that. You know, maybe wasn't so long ago that a female physio would be getting grief from the other side's fans. Don't think that's quite as bad as it was. Not saying it's gone away. So it's great to have those sort of role models. But then you have, as you mentioned, the women's team, and there's a bit of me thinks that, you know, beyond the burst forwards of interest in the English women's team, in a lot of ways, Wrexham's women's team is doing that job in Wales. It must be brilliant, the thought of being able to work with them.
It's amazing. I remember going to watch, went down to watch them in Roast last season, and just to see at the end of the game, the girls lining up to get autographs and photos, and they really looked up to them as someone like, well, you can play football for Wrexham. Well, then I love Wrexham and I can do it as well. And then, you know, like Rosie, Lily, you know, those on the documentary last night, it's that whole thing of like, if you can see it, you can be it. And they can see people, girls that can play for Wrexham. So, you know, the younger girls, they're like, well, I can do the same.
Yeah. At Ponky, I thought there was a real atmosphere of, like I say, aspirational atmosphere. There would always be there'd be loads of girls in their Wrexham tracksuits, and there'd often be little impromptu breakout games near the side of the pitch, maybe at half time, and a real sense of, like you say, that it's not just that you can aspire to be those players, it's that they're local players, so it feels real. And being so close to the ground, because it's, you know, obviously Ponky's not a stadium, gives them that opportunity to really feel like, right, this is, I know it sounds daft, but this is real. This isn't me separated by, you know, sort of 2,000 people in the crowd in front of me. This is real, and these are real people, and I can do that. And I find it much more sort of inspiring, really, than men's football is, even despite all the wonderful things that have been happening at Wrexham this season in the men's team.
I think it's just great that there's a Wrexham team to support on Saturday and a Wrexham team to support on Sunday as well. Like, you know.
Yeah.
I like my missus, not because she's been missus, but because she's not that into football. Like, just doesn't want me to get into the women's game just because she'll never see me on the weekends. So I gotta be careful, pick and choose.
Well, I've spun it the other way around, because my wife has been to the last few women's games as well and is really into it. Invites her friends to come with her as well. There's a different sort of atmosphere in some ways, and a different crowd in some ways as well. And you know, you were saying about working with the Adran Premier as well as with the, you know, I was going to say National League, then old habits die hard, with the Football League. But I from my stupid outside view, sort of feels like maybe the Adran Premier is going to be an easier body to work with, perhaps, that the crowds there are automatically going to be a bit more sensible, reasonable.
Yeah, I feel like there's more of a football, a family feel at the women's games as well. So obviously you've got your Saturdays where you've got your big crowds, the police escorts and everything like that, which we all actually know and love about football. But then on the Sunday, you've got a football fix again, but it's completely different. So it's all chilled and it's really quiet, and a lot of families around and a lot more kids around and stuff like that. So it is a completely different experience, but still really, really enjoyable both ways.
It's the easiest way to get a Wrexham ticket at the moment, isn't it? Although I can imagine the way they're playing, you know, if we beat Cardiff at the weekend, it might be one of those where it'll start being hard to get tickets for the women's games as well, which would be great, which would be a good headache to have, wouldn't it? It's interesting you say about the family. So we went to the racecourse game and took my brother's two little lads, And it was just quite nice to be able to say to them, we're going to watch Wrexham, and not say we're going to watch the Wrexham women's. It's just, we're just going to watch Wrexham, and they're going to grow up, and it's like, we're going to watch Wrexham on Saturday, and then we're going to go watch Wrexham on Sunday. And then, you know, and just sort of it be like that. And on the flip side, my nan, who's nearly 80, she's really into her football, but she's very like, oh, I'm not interested in watching the women's game. It's kind of nice to bring her along and actually change her mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you found anybody like sort of older generation getting in touch or involved, or is it more the younger generation you find?
I do find it's more of the younger generation, because they're promoting it in schools and stuff like that more, rather than the older generation.
So, you know, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's loads of people, you know, like in their 70s and 80s who were dying to play football when they were younger, but just couldn't get involved for whatever reason. So have you got any plans moving forward? Is there something that you'd like to promote, or anything that's coming up in particular?
So with the announcement being quite imminent, we are only just getting started. So it's just opening our social media pages. We want to get some flags and some badges made with the Her Game Too logo and the Wrexham logo. So it's just little things like that. But one thing that I am really going to push for is a cocktail tap at the racecourse. So I don't drink beer. I don't like beer. I've tried everything, every ground, and I just can't like it. I can't even force myself to like it. So I just think, I've seen we went to Spennymoor in pre-season a couple of years ago, and they just had a couple of cocktail taps. So I was literally watching Wrexham and Spennymoor on the sideline with a porn star martini, and I think it was the best day ever. So, even just little things like that, just a little bit more of a choice. I know obviously you get your cider as well, but I'm really fussy. So I think cocktails would be, even for both men and women, to be honest.
Yeah, to be fair, that could be lethal. There's a few of my mates who go to the game who might not be seeing much of half time if there was cocktails at the bar. But
if only we had an owner who, you know, owns, say, a gin company, who'd be able to push this a bit, you know. That sounds
whose wife owns a mixer company as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Come on, perfect synergy here.
Perfect. Oh, you'll fit in well here, Nicola. Puns like that. So we'll start with you, Chelsea. How did you get into football then? What was it that started your journey towards this?
So, well, I first started watching football, which might be completely different to everybody else, but was just watching my brother when he played for, you know, like the under-14s or whatever, just literally on the side of the pitch in the freezing cold. And then tried to start liking it on the telly, hated it. I just couldn't concentrate. And then one of my friend's cousins actually played for Wrexham. And we walked past one Saturday and you could just hear the crowd. And we're like, oh, should we go in? This was at the time where you could literally pay on the gate like £5 for an under 11. So we literally just walked in, and I just haven't stopped going since. So that's where my actual football journey began. And then I started with Her Game Too Cymru in the summer. Just started doing little bits, like I said before, about brick fields and stuff like that. But believe it or not, when I first started watching Wrexham, I was quite quiet, really reserved. I would never give my opinion on football, on Wrexham, or anything. I wouldn't even tell anyone I was a Wrexham fan, because of what Nick was talking about earlier, that sexism and, you know, or you only support them for male attention or stuff like that. Because I started supporting them in about 2012, so it wasn't the best season for Wrexham. So a lot of people were questioning my intentions and just putting it down to male attention. So that is where a big part of this has come. You know, obviously what I stand for is something that I've been through myself.
Yeah, it just saddens me to hear that, because you know, why should anybody have to justify they're a Wrexham fan? Doesn't matter what your gender is, sexual orientation, race, nationality these days. You know, nobody has to justify it. If you like something, who cares? It's just weird one, isn't it? How about you, Nicola? How did you start following Wrexham?
So it was early 90s with my dad and my brother. We started going kind of on and off. We'd be going shopping on a Saturday morning. Dad would be like, oh, Wrexham are at home, shall we go? And, you know, and it wasn't in the old days, like Chelsea was saying, like, you just pay your cash at the turnstile and just go and get a seat and whatever. And then eventually we got a season ticket. And then, yeah, rest is history. We sat in the same seat for 20 odd years. grew up. There's lads that sit around us that are 16, 17, and we've been sat with them since they were like 3 or 4. And then so I actually met Chelsea and Rupert, who's the lead for us for Her Game Too Cymru, at the women's game at the racecourse in kind of end of last season. So I was like, I just went up and said hello. Kind of knew about Her Game Too already, and then had a quick chat, and then did my form and said I was interested, and then we're both Cymru ambassadors, and then obviously the Wrexham thing has come about. So yeah, really excited to get going on it, because we love the club and we love going to watch the football, and we want the same people to have that same journey as us and to feel really included, and kind of from when they were our ages up to our age now, when you're kind of older and a bit more, probably maybe a bit more confident in our kind of opinions.
It's good stuff. I think, would you say to anyone wanting to come to a Wrexham game, would you say that these sort of negative attitudes, are people brave enough to express them to your face, or is it more the sense of the sort of muttering put down? Or do you know what I mean? What is somebody who's not been to the racecourse and feels nervous about it, what do you think they'd experience now?
Do you know what? I haven't experienced it in a couple of years, which is really good. I think since returning in after the COVID season, I don't think I've actually experienced it personally myself in person at the grounds. Obviously on Twitter and social media is completely different. I think I had on Twitter a couple of months ago, go back to watching Love Island, and I was like, I can do both. But, there's enough time. But yeah, in person, obviously you don't really get it anymore. And I think a lot more people, both men and women, are starting to call it out. So we had a linesman a couple of games ago that was a woman, and she did get a few decisions wrong, I am going to admit, but we've had Paul Marsden, you can criticize a lot of people that have come to the race. And there were some men behind me, and they were saying, oh, she was too busy painting her nails to make that decision. And I thought, right, I'll let it slide this one time. And then he said it again and again and again. It was almost as if he was trying to get people to laugh at him, or I don't know, he just kept trying that same comment. And I did have to turn around in the end and just say, she's a linesman. They're all the same, no matter where they've come from, what gender they are. If they make a mistake, that's not down to their gender. It's down to either their ability or having an off day, or just like everybody makes a mistake. I just don't get why he was putting it down to her painting her nails. So, I don't think it's actually aimed at the fans as much anymore, because I don't think that people are brave enough anymore. We live in a society now, people might say we're too woke, but I think a lot of things are called out these days, which is really good. Absolutely.
I remember that game as well. I have the sort of privilege of getting the footage afterwards. So before I do like a podcast, I'll have a look back at certain incidents, and it gives you a different perspective. And I must be honest, I felt at the time she was much better than the other lines. The lines were on the other side, and watching the videos really bore that out. Some grief people get is just from bias more than anything else as well, isn't it? But I thought she was good, to be honest with you. But that guy is just labouring under the mistaken understanding that he's funny, and he isn't. Line, isn't it? I don't know.
Go on. What do you think your biggest challenge is going forward then? What do we need to... I mean, obviously that's something to tackle, but I think you can sort of, if you treat it the same way things like racism and prejudice are treated, it will get stamped out pretty quickly, because at the end of the day, Wrexham's the hardest ticket in the country to get at the moment. So you threaten someone with their season ticket. It's not right in that they will only be quiet because of that reason, but at least it stops them putting impressions on younger people. What do you think going forward after that is the biggest challenge you face?
I think mainly what I've noticed is the chanting might be the main thing. So obviously fans, we all have some banter. That's what football is. But I think it's getting to that stage where you draw a line between banter and the chanting. So a lot of chanting's been called out recently. I know at Chelsea games about and Brighton games with sexual orientation and stuff like that. So I think if, like you say, if we treat it like racism and other things, I think that's our biggest challenge, is to be able to get people to view it as bad as racism and stuff like that, because we want to be inclusive to everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's when people put it down to banter. Like, I remember a female physio I think the club ended up sending her flowers and apologising to her after the game because it was that bad. And I've seen it on Twitter when people going, "Oh, it's just banter. It's this, and that." And like, it's not banter when it's like 200 people chanting at one person, and that person isn't giving anything back. Banter is back and forth.
Yeah.
It's not loads of people chanting about a woman's body parts kind of thing. And she's literally doing her job. That's all she's doing. That's, she's just trying to do her job. And, it was quite upsetting when it happened. And as, Chelsea said, it's just accepting that those kind of chants are the same as the racism and, homophobia and that kind of thing. It's not banter, is it? It's abuse.
Yeah. No, and I think, the fact that you've stood up to people, Chelsea, and you probably have had to as well, Nicola, that it also takes us as well, men who are in the ground, to also turn around and say, shut your mouth in no uncertain terms, because if they're already of that mindset, they're probably not going to listen to a woman anyway. No offense. It's just that that's how they think, isn't it? People like that. So they need us to turn around and say, actually, you're not right to say that. That's something you've got to stop.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a good fan of Wrexham or just a good person, then there are certain lines that you need to draw. And like I said, over all sorts of abuse, it's your duty as a decent member of society, never mind anything else, to turn around and say, no, that's not acceptable. You're dead right, Bill. You're absolutely right. I hate saying that, Bill, because, I don't like it when you're right.
But I mean, like, on the positive spin, it's amazing to see you do things like this, and all credit to the pair of you giving up your free time. Did you say it was non-profit charity? So that's, not just yourselves, but the people who run it as a charity. Fair play, because I've done a little bit of charity work, really small amount, and I know how much giving your own time to do stuff can have an impact on your life. So fair play. It's it's really impressive.
The women that run it, so the ladies that started it, are just absolute powerhouses. What they've put together, and I can't remember how many clubs have partnered with. Chelsea might be able to remind me, but the aim is for the 92, at least the 92 kind of league teams, plus they're partnered with countless grassroots university teams, school teams. I said the Adran and the Cymru Premier. So what they've started is incredible, and what they've and even from a very personal point of view, that we've got a WhatsApp where we just chat back and forth about football opinions, and you're chatting to fans of everywhere around. So we've got a Bradford fan in there, so we've been chit-chatting about Mark Hughes going, and you're kind of getting the kind of lowdown about what the fans are feeling and that kind of thing. So just as a community, purely Her Game Too, it's what they've created is amazing.
Yeah, I think we're on 72 out of the 92 now, so we're getting really, really close. And they only formed in 2021, so we're getting there.
Fair play.
Brilliant progress, that, isn't it? I was just thinking then, I just like the idea I said before about role models, and role models can be both someone to aspire to be like and just somebody who shows people who might be prejudiced actually they're wrong and makes them slowly realise that. And I just think we're blessed at this football club because, as I said, we've got role models like Gemma Owen, Gemma Bamford, the Rosie Hughes, all the women's team, and yourselves as well. And I think that is also fantastic because it's just showing, not like I said, not only to young girls that look at this is what you can do, but also maybe showing to people who are carelessly and stupidly sexist, well, actually, what would this club be like if we withdrew all those people?
Yeah,
it'd be massively, massively diminished. Fleur Robinson as well, beg your pardon. And Julia, who was tremendous behind the scenes. It's just people need to just see that and open their eyes, smell the coffee, see the real world. you know.
Chelsea said before, like, we're not going away.
Yeah.
We're not all. Their questions are, you know, countless about what they've contributed. So people maybe some people open their eyes and looked at what women have contributed to football, then they might have a different kind of thought.
Exactly. It seems to me that it's the good work of people like yourselves that will ultimately make the difference. And so thank you so much for what you do. I think it's brilliant.
You're welcome.
So you talk about some real football, Bill?
Yeah, after this, we will be talking about
some actual tragedy on the pitch rather than all this nice positive thinking off it.
Absolutely. So after this, we're going to be talking about the Crewe. Was it Pettibon? Oh, I'm showing myself up.
Wrexham. No, we beat Barry.
Was it Pettibon last week? Sorry, I knew the result.
Yeah, Crewe.
This is a great look, isn't it, for a Her Game 2 podcast for me to come on and not remember the women's result. I'll blame the cold. And
I'll blame sexist Bill Long and his
incredibly sexist. Great stuff.
That was smooth, wasn't it?
We'll wrap that up. Yeah, really smooth.
I'm Mia Roberts, and this is Dragonheart.
Well, we've got a couple of three cracking games to talk about. We'll start with the Wrexham versus Crewe, 3-3. Nicola, what was your impressions of the match?
Felt like a win, I think, at the end of it. I think we didn't start as maybe quite a few games so far. We've started quite slow. Sending off kind of felt like maybe that was the beginning of the end. But I do think a lot of the time with teams sometimes up their game when they've got 10 men and they're a bit more organised, they're up for it a bit more. And I think, you know, more than getting that goal back and whatever, I think, you know, they were up for it then. Didn't have the highest hopes. Obviously the weather was horrible and over conditions, and, you know, Barney getting sent off, and you're feeling very aggrieved that maybe it was a bit hard done by at the time. You know, you're not 100% when you've seen it kind of once in real time. But yeah, 90 minutes, it felt like a win.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the crowd reaction in the what's it called now? The Stoke Cold Brew Coffee. That's like a tongue twister. The Stoke Cold Brew Coffee stand. It was quite funny at the end of the game when people were trying to get Paul Mullin to do his end of match thing, and you could tell he was like, "No, we haven't won," but the fans felt like they'd won.
Brilliant atmosphere at the end, wasn't it? Really terrific. And I think I felt like I was concerned the first 20 minutes. I just thought we're going to react to getting battered to Stockport. We're going to come at them. And we really didn't. It felt a lot like Stockport in a lot of ways. And I felt a little concerned. And yet by the end of it, let's be honest, we refound our resilience. We've been so good at bouncing back the last couple of years and coming back from behind and fighting against adversity. And at Stockport, we just couldn't. It was like we had to go to the well one time too many, and we just couldn't pull ourselves back up into the game. But then, my goodness me, Saturday, 10 men for an hour, fighting back, 3 equalisers. I mean, all with 10 men. And I know I've said this stat before, but in all our history, we've only once scored 3 goals with 10 men. And that was when the very first red card ever given to a Wrexham player in 1912. I mean, wow. That's quite something, isn't it? But that fight that they showed, and frankly, I'm talking to Andy Morrell afterwards, and he said what I thought. If that had been another 5 minutes, Crewe had collapsed by the end, didn't they? They were just trapped in their box. The moment we equalised, we get the ball straight back from the kickoff, and we're looking for the winner. And Andy Morrell said, and I 100% agree, another 5 minutes, we'd have won that, because they were gone. But they were playing against 10 men, and we'd run them off their legs. So it was superb.
Yeah, that's it. Match covered there, I think, Mark. Chelsea, was there any standout players on the day for you?
Crewe.
For us, sorry.
I think Ollie Palmer. I think recently, even his chest stand that he started to do the past couple of games, you don't really see that if you watch on the stream or like behind the scenes. A lot of people don't really pick up on stuff like that, and the amount of headers he won that game. I think for me it was Palmer, as it was on Tuesday with Mansfield as well. But like Mark said, I think we could have smashed and grabbed it if we just had that little bit more time.
Yeah, it was an unusually normal amount of added time, wasn't it? Was it 6 minutes? Like, it's usually 7 or 8 these days, but
I was so much more minutes. I was expecting more. And the first half as well, I was like, 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Surely we're like 6.
Yeah, after a red card and a penalty, and a couple of players went down at one point, didn't they, as well? So, like, yeah.
It was a long stoppage, wasn't it, when Barnett got the red card, because Tracy got treatment for a long time.
Yeah.
The force seemed minimal. But I was saying in the commentary, because he was warning the Crewe players about time wasting. He was, rather than booking them, he's warning them. And you think, well, okay, well, you better add all this on. And I said in the commentary, it's got minimum 10 minutes. It's got to be. And to give 6 was astounding. If you put the 10 on, we'd have won that. I'm really sure we would have.
It's a funny one, because I don't know how you lot felt, but I felt like every time we fouled someone, we got a yellow card, and every time they fouled someone, it was like, oh, naughty, don't do it again, you know.
It does, yeah.
It was a strange game, but like ultimately a good result, but just weird.
We showed great heart to me. It was wonderful.
We did,
and quality. I don't want to reduce it to heart. I mean, Chelsea are quite right about Palmer. And that chest touchdown for Millen to score his second. If Harry Kane did that, they'll all be having kittens on Sky Sports, wouldn't they? And Match of the Day, they'll be, oh, look at England's captain. Look what he did. It was utter perfection to get the weight right on that touch. Was not supposed to be able to do that in League Two. Most players in the Premier League can't. It was a beautiful piece of skill. Wonderful, wasn't it?
It's like you said though, Chelsea. Like it's a shame that the highlights don't really capture a lot of what he does. But the highlight for that goal, you can't really see him chest it down, can you? No. I don't know if you've watched it back, but in person it was superb.
Brilliant.
I think people miss a lot of what Ollie does, especially on the street.
Yeah,
seeing it, him taking the attention off Mullen. You know, he's taking that black because he's so big. He's got like 2 players on him, and Mullen's free to do bicycle kicks. So
yes, and we also see. I think you're dead right. It reminds me, and it's a weird combination to compare it to, but you know, look, I know it's before your times, but Watkin and Bennett in the 90s developed like that. Watkin wasn't a big target man. He's about 5'10", but he was superb at holding the ball up at his back to goal, and so strong, and you know, backing into people. And he took so much strain off Bennett, and he'd hold her up, he'd attract people to him, and then he was good enough to find Bennett. And if you give Bennett a bit of space, he's liable to score. And it's a bit like that, isn't it? You know, Palmer is such a handful. Defenses are so busy battling him, it can only create space for Mullen, and Mullen's sharp at his movements as well. But yeah, I think Palmer, and also at the opponent's set pieces, Palmer's an important part of our defensive setup. Number of corners he wins, heads clear. No, it's good to see him play like this after last season when he was a bit up and down, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, to go from one 6-goal thriller to another. But Town United, ladies, I will get that right now. Wrexham FC women. Wrexham AFC 5. Rosie Hughes, she's absolutely magic, isn't she?
She's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
Well, Rob McElhenney's right, isn't he, in saying that she is the great goal scorer at the club. I mean, amazingly, her goal scoring figures dwarf those of Paul Mullen, who is, by most measures, the second best or second most prolific striker the Wrexham men's team's ever had. But she's off the scale, isn't she? It's ludicrous. It's brilliant.
And it's go on, sorry.
I was going to say she's an absolute menace when she's playing as well. She won't give up when she wants. You know, we saw it in a documentary when they were playing the Connors Chaos, I didn't know, and she just won't give up. She'll get the ball and she's going to score. I think it was the game at the racecourse. They showed her one of her goals, and she just wasn't giving up getting that ball. And yeah, she is an absolute menace.
It's almost unfortunate that Paul Mullen is doing as well as he is for Rosie Hughes's profile, and I think people will always naturally compare them, but they do have quite a similar playing style, don't they? They're both in your face. They're both absolutely ruthless in front of goal. I mean, but as important as Mullin is to the men's, I think Rosie Hughes is more important, isn't she?
And especially as we play essentially the women's team with a sole striker, so it's more of a 4-2-3-1, isn't it? So there's more onus on her perhaps to be scoring. But the similarities, the movements, the pace, the work rate, because they will both come back and fight. They don't like losing. Just lots of the positive elements you want in a striker. When I was a kid, this is going to be something stupid, I'd get nervous if one of our players was one-on-one with a keeper. Oh no, what if they miss? And it's quite nice to now come full circle to when Rosie Hughes is one-on-one. It's like, a goal this, startled different. And that one you mentioned that they won the race course. I mean, I remember commentating on that, and I thought that was, sometimes when you watch something highlights afterwards, it takes the drama away from it. That was one of the most exciting goals I've ever commentated on, because it was just from one end to the other. You've got Whitefoot with the big tackle, just getting there to help her onto her, and then Rosie Hughes. I mean, it's so rare that you feel this, but I think when I was commentating, I think it made me sound better than I was, because I was excited when she got the ball and she had a defender to beat. Because at that point, I thought, this is a goal. I just had no doubt she was going to burst past the defender. I had no doubt she was going to finish the one-on-one. And that's a lovely feeling to have,
Yeah, there's something special about the women's team all being from North Wales as well, isn't it? Basically all from North Wales, because it just adds that. I love Jordan Davis and Bickerstaff and Crewe have come through the youth setup, but for an entire team to be so relatable is it's inspiring, isn't it? But you said you were both at the Swansea game. Actually, you were on S4C, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that atmosphere like then? Was it? How can I put this? Like, Swansea are a household name across the UK, aren't they? And they're in the top division in women's football. That was a big occasion for us, wasn't it?
It was. I think the atmosphere at first, it was nervy. You could tell everyone's there thinking, how is this game going to go? And then as we got into it, I think the first 10 minutes, you could tell we were a little bit nervy. Then we started to find our feet get really comfortable. And I think we thought, no, we're in this league for a reason. And then as we started building our confidence, getting into it, that's when the atmosphere followed as well. It was a really good atmosphere until obviously that horrific injury that happened to one of the Swansea players. It brought it down a little bit, because from where myself and Nick were standing, you could hear her go into the photographer and into the side. So it was just horrible waiting for her to, give us the okay that she was fine. But and then again after that second half, it was just a real nail biter, but it was so entertaining to watch.
Yeah, it seemed like it's towards the last sort of 5-10 minutes, seemed like a goal every couple of seconds, didn't it, at one point?
I felt it was really interesting, because you're dead right, Chelsea. There was that sort of tense feeling, and I think it wasn't helped by the fact that Swansea are good at holding on to the ball. And so we had long spells where we were having to sit deep and survive, basically. But we did it well. And then we started exploiting that pace we've got up front. So I don't think we would look to keep the ball as much as Swansea do. But the pace up front with Hughes, with Lightfoot, with Pritchard, and the movement and the ability of the rest of the team to recognise that when we get the ball, let's get it forwards quickly. Let's get down those channels, use their pace. And you're sitting at one of those wonderful games where you feel one side looks in control, but the other side looks much more likely to score goals. Because we just kept, every time we tore at them, you thought, well, this is a real opportunity. And I thought it was terrific entertainment. I think we'll get the same on Sunday, because I think Cardiff will come with the same attitude, but we have got that sort of devastating pace on the break. I've got to say, and this may be an odd thing to say, but despite the fact that we did so brilliantly against such a strong team, in a lot of ways, I think that the two subsequent games mean more, because that's two games against Pontypridd and Barry, who are established teams at this level. And yet we've gone there and we've smashed them both times. And to me, that says, no, we're not going to just, let's make sure we're away from relegation. We are there to make a difference. Now, whether we can, at this point, really challenge Cardiff and Swansea over the course of a season, I don't know. That would be a big ask. But we certainly look like we're going to give it a try rather than have to worry and look over our shoulders at the bottom half and the relegation playoff zone, because we're battering the teams that are established in there.
I'm maybe slightly more optimistic than you, Mark. I'm going to give you a hot take prediction now.
Yep.
Back-to-back title wins for the men's and the women's.
Oh,
this is recorded, right?
It is, yeah.
There's no escape from that one.
There isn't, because I'm going to try and smoothly segue into the Mansfield game, which I think, Chelsea, you were there, so you can give us a bit of a better rundown, but I felt like, from my delirious, cold-filled head, that was actually, and I will make the case for this, a title-winning performance.
Yeah, the first 45, I think a lot of people all around the ground and on social media and stuff were really criticising us. And I just thought, when you've come back from, obviously we've got Crewe in the middle of that, but when you've literally been, our last away game, you've had 5 goals scored against you. You need to tighten up. You can't just go to every away ground expecting us to run and attack from the off. It's just not going to happen. So that first 45 minutes, I thought it was pivotal, really, to show that we can keep it tight, we can control the game and keep a clean sheet effectively. But then I think as well, I was going into halftime personally thinking, they're not going to do this for 90 minutes. There's no way. They're running out of ideas. So when we come into that second half, it was a really good second half. I think both teams were unlucky not to score, to be honest. So I thought it was a really good point away from home and really good performance. I feel like we've got our confidence up away from home, ready to go into Crawley on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The first half wasn't pretty, but you're dead right. They pressed us so hard. You think, have you got the legs to do that for 90? And in the second, we were getting closer to them because they didn't have as much zip about them, and we had space then to play. And I mean, a lot of people said, "Oh, Mansfield were the better side, but we did okay." I thought they were the better in the first half, and I thought we were by far the better in the second half.
Yeah.
Apart from Keeler Dunn's header early on, did they really make proper chances? I know they hit the post twice, but one of them was outside the box, and the other one's just inside the box. They're very good, and I agree. I think that's the sort of performance and result that really sets you up. I thought it was excellent.
I think we're almost still running on a bit of a high from last season. We're expecting to go to teams and just put a few goals every single one, and we're still sussing League Two out. We're still kind of getting, we've been away for a long time, and it's a big step up, and it would be at the end of the season, that will be a great point, because Mansfield will be up there as well. So I think in terms of, we're not going to go to every ground and score 3 goals and set the world on fire. It's going to be very different, and maybe people bring their expectations down just a little bit. As Bill said, we're still going to win the league.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, the stats back it up, though. I was reading the Athletic earlier. Leyton Orient last season drew, was it 12 or 13, and lost 7 games, and they still came first. We've got plenty of time, and I think if you're going to win more than you draw, you can afford a few more losses as well, if that makes sense. So we once it clicks with this team, and maybe with 1 or 2 additions if needs be at Christmas, I just think we're just teams are going to run out of steam against us. Like you're saying, after 45 minutes, they run out of ideas and they haven't got the energy to execute what they were executing well, later on. So, and that's only going to get harder for teams as the season gets on. If we keep our fitness up, we've got a lot of depth, so we can rotate. You can take McLean off, and you've got Mendy on the bench. And then he goes and gets that assist for Ollie Palmer in the Crewe game. It's not Ollie Palmer, sorry, Stephen Fletcher. So yeah, this is I'm calling it now, and I think as well with the women's. After this last episode of the documentary that's gone out, the chairman are going to want to put as much money as possible into winning the league again this year for the women, I think, as well. What did you make of that episode? Have you both seen it?
I loved it.
Yeah, I did. I think it was my favourite one so far, just purely because they haven't really been football related, have they? And I know obviously the documentary's got a different target audience to reach, but I liked the first season where it was really football orientated. So I think yesterday, where you see a lot of the football and a lot of the players' stories behind it, it was my favourite episode so far.
Yeah, I think they did it brilliantly to kind of show the back, and these women's team, they work, they've got jobs, Ruth works in a prison. It's not an easy job. And then she goes and scores like 5 goals just, at the weekend kind of thing. So I think they did it incredibly well. And I think with the owners to kind of saying they're not putting money into the women's team for a box ticking exercise, or they see it as a real opportunity, commercial opportunity. They really see it as, that, and I suppose coming from America, they see women's football being bigger. They know what it could be, so it's hear from them that they're not just like, oh, they've got a women's team, we'll put money in it. It's like, no, we believe in the team.
I think that's why it was so special last season when we had 2 promotion buses. Like, when has anyone ever had 2 promotion buses following each other? That's just, it's crazy, but it was so good to see.
Yeah.
The only times I can sort of think of it was when, in the early 2000s, when Arsenal women's were like the best team in England, weren't they? And Arsenal were winning at the same time. But like, look at that though. That they both those teams sort of fed off each other, and there's absolutely no reason why our teams can't feed off each other as well, I think. And what a great problem to have, where you choose between Rosie Hughes and Paul Mullin. Like, it's not that there's been much worse times to be Wrexham fans, isn't there?
Yeah, I remember the bus convoy through town to celebrate, open top bus convoy, 1972, when I won the gold medal in the Munich Olympics gymnastics. I was, Bill, as you know, the Romanian butterfly, the nation's darling. Yeah, all right, maybe not.
There's going to be about 2 kids from my old form that are going to really enjoy that, and then that's about it, Mark.
Bill, they still come up to me and ask, can they see
about that? Yeah,
butterfly?
Yeah,
this morning they did. Seriously, tell you what, I've damaged some minds there.
There's a good group. Yeah, do you know what though? I think you're right. I think it's definitely been my favourite episode of the season so far. I saw that and the Millie one was really good, although it was kind of a strange experience for me watching that, just because Millie's an older pupil of mine. So I sort of knew some of it already. It took a bit of the surprise out of it, but shout out Millie if you're watching.
I just want to say thank you for skipping over the episode in the middle of that had me in it a lot. Thank you. That's charming. That is. You see what's a lot of...
Your head doesn't need to be any bigger anyway, mate.
Yeah. He turns up here for video viewers looking like Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars.
I don't know what's going on with lighting
issues there, mate. and he ignores my work. What can I say?
Right, well, I think on that note, we'll call the show a day there. Nicola and Chelsea, where can we find you on social media, and where is the place to go for more information about Her Too Cymru?
So we have a website, Her Game Too Cymru, or if you just Google Her Game Too, it'll all come up. We are in the process of making an Instagram, Twitter and Facebook account for the Her Game Too Wrexham one. We're just dealing with all the behind the scenes stuff for that. So that'll be up and running shortly. But if you just find us both on Twitter, we'll be happy to direct you from there.
We'll put your names in the descriptions as well of the podcast as well, if people want to follow you. So brilliant. It's been a pleasure, hasn't it? I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much for coming on. I apologise for my swollen cold head. I am going to go for a lie down right now. It's the lighting's on purpose. It's because I'm green, really. Okay, so we've been Bill Long, Mark Griffiths, Nicola Hughes, and Chelsea, whose surname isn't on there, so sorry, so I can't read it out. Follow us on all the socials. Follow us on YouTube. I'm going to go take some painkillers. Adios.
Adios, muchachos.
I'm Steve Dale, and this is Dragonheart.